So,
you know what I would even say? Pay attention to like the last argument that you had, if you can go back, especially if it's been a fresh one, and see, was there an absolute somewhere in the middle of that conversation? See if there was an absolute that actually triggered that actual argument or disagreement that y'all had. You might be surprised. It may be the result of an actual absolute.
hey guys, we are back with another video. We are Meet the Simmons. So today, for today's video, we're going to discuss a topic that has been frustrating couples, mainly men, for a very, very long time. And that topic is, we're going to do 4 reasons why you may be using absolutes. So, can you tell them what an absolute is, since you tend to use them more than I do?
You always want me to start telling people what we're talking about. You always want me to do that. So an absolute is, by definition,
it's a very absolute statement. It's a you never, you always. You never buy me flowers. You
never spend time with me. You never.
You always leave the toilet seat up. You always,
you always forget to whatever.
Yeah, those are what absolutes are, and it drives people batty. It especially drives men crazy, and I'll tell you why. Because as men, we're logical thinkers, and we know that nobody is always doing something. Nobody never does anything. You never tell me you love me. I just told you that this morning. I just told you that a few days ago, or whatever. But for men, we're like, wow, we can't win. So, and men use absolutes too. We do. It's just that women tend to use absolutes a little bit more, and we'll explain why as we go down, because it is actually an emotional response. That's why women tend to use them a little bit more than men, because women spend more time in the emotional realm than men do. So, number 1, reasons why you may be using absolutes. Absolutes automatically put your spouse on the defensive. And so you may be resorting to doing this because it gets your spouse's attention. You're immediately, your spouse is on the defense. I never. So
you never spend time with me, and then automatically,
yeah. So it gets their attention. So you may be using it as a tactic to actually get your spouse's attention, but it's a negative response.
Yeah.
You're not getting the right response. It's like a child throwing a temper tantrum, and the child wants your attention, but so they throw a temper tantrum to get your attention, but it's a negative response. You don't, and as adults, we don't want to communicate in a negative manner, especially within a marriage or relationships. How you feel about that?
I agree.
Have you ever done it?
Yes. I don't know if it was intentional, but yes, I've done it.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Most of this stuff is subconscious, guys. This isn't something that you're consciously like, oh, I'm gonna get him or her upset, or I'm gonna. No, it's called an activating strategy. So if you have especially for people who have insecure attachment styles, and maybe we'll do a whole video on attachment styles.
Yeah, that'll be good.
If you have an insecure attachment style where you're constantly needing validation from your partner, well, people with insecure attachment styles generally will implement activating strategies, something to make their spouse do something to give them to get what they need or what they feel like they need. Like a lot of spouses will. Somebody that texts constantly, is always texting, always calling. Hey, are you okay? Hey, what you doing? What you doing? What you eating? It's something to make your spouse activate to do something to give you. Okay, I'm cool. I love you. I miss you. To give you what you need. So it's not something that's conscious. So but by the time we're done with this video, hopefully you'll become more conscientious of what you may be doing, and why you are doing it. So that was number 1. What's number 2?
Number 2, hurling absolutes at your spouse draws a bigger wedge between you and your spouse.
Yeah, it doesn't work. That activating strategy that you're doing, it may work temporarily, but in the long run, it's just driving a wedge between you more and more, because he or she's gonna get tired of hearing you nobody wants to hear what they never
basically
do.
About what they always are doing or never is actually doing. So again, and that's for men or women, you feel like you can't win. So if you can't win something, then why try?
Absolutely.
So that becomes the mindset or the attitude behind it. So you got to really be careful with that.
Yep. And so that wedge there can grow bigger and bigger over time, because at the end of the day, nobody wants to feel like they're a failure, like they're failing at marriage.
That was you.
So, absolutely.
Funny.
Anyway, so, number 3 is really the root of all of it. Is unmet, unrealistic expectations. So when you have unrealistic expectations in a relationship, and when they're not met, because unrealistic expectations can never be met. Because they're unrealistic, then you start with the you never, and you, because it feels that way to you. It feels like you never tell me you love me.
Emotionally, it really does. In those moments, because you're craving and desiring it more than you're actually receiving it. And instead of saying, it would be nice if you just said I love you a little bit more. I just love it when you, instead of communicating that way, you resort to, you never say I love you.
Like
I'm always saying I love you first. I always initiate sex, or whatever it is.
You never buy me flowers, because your expectation was that you were going to get flowers every week. When y'all were dating, you thought that was just going to keep up. When you're married now, and then, first of all, that's expensive. And second of all, everybody got time for all that.
Flowers die.
We married.
They're pretty. They die though.
It's certain things, so when you bring those unrealistic expectations into your marriage, there's certain things that just don't carry over well into marriage, and things like that just don't. Now, I'm not saying you should. I think you should. Let her know you care and do things for him or her, but you can't. It's certain things that just don't carry over well into marriage. And spending $50 a week on flowers probably is not a good thing. You can take that money and save it over a year and do a trip somewhere or do something fun with you guys. So it's certain things that don't carry over, and then when those unrealistic expectations aren't met, that's when you get the you never, you always, and then the person is left feeling like they can't win, they feel like they can't do anything right. So at the root of it all, that's what it is. Number 3, unmet unrealistic expectations. We'll put all these at the bottom so you guys can see.
Ooh, number 4, keeping score and out of touch with your emotions could be another cause for using those absolutes. So, like we mentioned before, let's say it's quality time, because that's a famous one that a lot of people like to talk about and say, well, you never spend quality time with me, or you never spend enough time with me. Well, if I'm emotionally out of touch and not really paying attention to, technically, in the evenings when we come home from work, we spend at least a good hour together every night. But instead of thinking of it that way, because I'm wanting more and more of his attention, I may feel in those moments that no, he's not spending quality time with me. It's not enough time. But every night we're literally spending the evening together. But not thinking of it logically, emotionally, I may feel deprived. Like, oh, but we're cooking dinner and we're talking. Well, that's still quality time. I mean, you're still spending time together.
Well, can you explain to them what keeping score is also? That's a big one. Go ahead.
So keeping score would be like, well, you explain it from the man's perspective. I'm going to explain it from mine.
Okay. So for me, keeping score is like when she says, you never spend time with me. We were just hanging out last weekend. Or you never do this, you never do that. So like keeping score is like, I washed the dishes last time and you didn't help this time, and that's keeping score. Like, man, we're trying to keep this house rolling. And when you keep score, and when you're always, well, I did this and you did that, it separates us more.
Yeah. I think it's the same from what I see it, but the time that I see it being used the most is during an argument or a disagreement. So let's say I have that mental checklist of what I'm doing and what you're not doing, or what you are, and I'm whatever the checklist in my head I'm running. The perfect time to actually whip that bad boy out is, the reason we don't spend quality time together is because I'm cleaning this house. And it seems like I'm always cleaning the house, and I'm always having to clean the house because you seem to come home from work and just sit down. But because I'm always cleaning the house, that's why we can't spend quality time together. And quality time to me is not me cleaning and you watching. That would be a prime example of kind of the keeping score.
Yeah, my blood pressure just went up a little bit. I felt like my heart, like, oh.
You were tense. I saw your arms good. It's all right. I was just.
I can't live like that.
Yes.
And so what do you do? So this is what you're here for. What do you do? For number 1, you must be intentional about your communication, and that goes across the board for any relationship, work, church, home, but especially within your marriage.
Anything.
You have to be intentional about your communication. You gotta think before you speak. Tell your partner what you need. I think most couples fail with that because they're scared. Everybody's scared to talk about what they really need from their partner because they're scared that either A, it's going to be used against them later, or B, they're not going to get it ever, and their partner's going to shut down. But if you want a really good relationship, you want that relationship's going to last for 21 years and more, like we just hit, shabao.
Shabao?
Yes.
Shabao.
You need to be intentional about your communication. What's the next one? What do you think?
Get in touch with your emotions. Really sit, like you said, think before you speak. So find out before you actually share what you're going to share or say what you're going to say. Think about it. What are those motives behind what you're saying? What is it that you're feeling? What is it that you're needing in that moment? And again, because you're having a hard time articulating that, What's behind that? What are those emotions that's driving on that? Where are you? Are you feeling lonely? Are you feeling rejected? Are you feeling abandoned? What are those emotions that's driving you to actually have to resort to using the absolute? You have to know what those are so that you can identify them and start to actually deal with those root causes so that you don't actually have to resort to using those absolutes.
Yep. And lastly, but more importantly, just don't stay away from the word. Stay away from it. If you find yourself, stop, breathe, and think about what you're going to say. That's what we mean by being intentional about your communication. That's what we mean. Like, think about it. Think about it. I don't want to say always, never. Those things
only,
are not,
those, yeah.
It's not going to get me down the road. It's not going to get me what I want.
Exclusive words, yeah.
And you can do it because you do it at work. I know you can because you do it at work. You don't talk to your boss crazy.
Like, you always make me work extra hours.
Yeah. If you do, then you check yourself there too, though.
Yeah.
But that's really what it boils down to, guys.
And it's going to take practice. So if you let's say you're in a conversation, you use that absolute. So you always watch too much TV. Oh, I'm sorry. I feel like you're watching more TV than I would like. Honestly, let me just share. I would like us to spend a little bit more time together. So this evening, do you think you could watch a little bit less TV? That's a whole lot better than always.
Yeah, that's a different approach. And you see how she went to the root of what she wanted. Instead of attacking my TV watching time, she said, I would like for us to spend more time together. That's what's at the root of it. So
I want more time with him.
Yeah, stop being on the surface and using these little terms to activate your spouse. Just be honest about what you need and what you want, and you'll get better results, less drama, and less stress in your relationships if you do that.
And that's what everybody probably wants. I know we do.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You're so punny.
Yeah. You know what, guys? And with that, that's enough said.